Live from the apocalypse, this is State of the Game. We are dedicated to saying words that you're uncomfortable hearing, like gushy, you know? I just said it. My name is Dano. Just simply a heartwarming fan of Patti Smith. That's what I am. Anyway, and I am joined my co-host who just did his video just went viral, barbershop kind of quartet singing of Whistle While You Twerk that is really running TikTok. Kay, thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
Always do.
We've got a guest today. I mean, I really fell down a well going into this discography and just keep going. It's awesome. But our guest gave every sand grain a name that graced the hourglass. We're talking about Illogic, Columbus, Ohio legend. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day, to talk to me about some music, man. Let's get it. Let's go.
And it's important, Kay. Remember, we had Love Ulysses on, wonderful MC, and we were like, we're really excited. Illogic's coming, and he was like, "Oh, Super Duty Tough Work got me through 2019, like got me through it." So you've got this whole second legacy as the comforting voice in this rap podcasting world. You are like the comfortable voice of reason, but that's your second legacy, and I wanted to talk about your first legacy, because when I started digging in, because the transition, your new album, The Transition, this is, hey, if you haven't noticed, January was kind of dedicated to dope albums that came out later in the year that I didn't want to slip through the cracks. Transition was one of those, and it was kind of gave me permission to become an Illogic guy and just dive in.
Right.
Of course, I immediately DM'd Curly Castro and was like, "Show me the way. Where do I start?" So, thank you, Castro, as always. He was happy to have me. But the hypothesis here, Kay, we've done episodes before. We did an episode dedicated to Idea with Dunce Cap. We did an episode dedicated to the legacy of Def Jux and covered Labor Days. When we talk about that period of time, right? And we talk about the seminal figures, Slug, Idea, Aesop Rock, people that were dedicating themselves to making lyricism ornate and making hip-hop lyrics something nobody could make fun of and deepening the genre. And you have a comfortable seat at that table.
I appreciate that.
Peers in that, and that's an incredible thing to say.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing to hear. I've been doing this for a long time, and I think as a kid when I first started rapping, I always, of course, everybody wants to be famous, Yep. And as I dove deeper into the art, I started to appreciate the art and always wanted to. Whenever my time ends or whenever I leave this earth, I always wanted to be, I've grown into wanting to be seen as one of the best to ever pick up a pen. So, I started to dedicate my life to that, idea, and whatever comes of that. You know what I'm saying? Like I've gone past the times of wanting to blow, you know what I mean? And I passed that time a while ago. But now it's just about the art, and it's about the, my legacy. I talk about legacy a lot in a lot of my albums. It's one of the streaming, ideals throughout a lot of my music is what I'm going to leave this earth, what's going to be left of me and what my music does, as representing me and my family and my position in life and the things that I believe in and, all of that. And, it's super dope to hear, that journey was not in vain, and it's not over, But, you know, the fact that I've been doing this for 20 plus years, putting out records, and, you know, it hasn't fell on deaf ears is amazing.
So was there an aha moment where you just shifted your focus, like, you know, where you came in like, look, I want to be known? Because I feel like a lot of battle rappers, they start out with that chip on their shoulder, like, I'm going to battle you and you're going to heed to me. You're going to recognize my skill. When did you shift from like wanting to prove yourself externally to just wanting to prove yourself internally to yourself?
Honestly, as a person who started out in the battle culture, you know, that's really how I started to get my name. That piece of me is always there, you know, always wanting to just be the best on the mic, you know, and get my name out there and be known is always going to be there. And I think still to this day, it's not necessarily that it's all internal, because, you know, personally, I think everything that I do is dope. I think every artist should think
Absolutely.
that, you know, well, probably about 95%. You know, I've done some whack shit in my life, but never put it out. Nobody's heard it. But you know, I think, you know, I'm always going to want, because for me, it's about what the people get from what I do. And a lot of times I do write for myself first, but in writing for myself, I'm trying to learn something and in turn teach something at the same time. So there's always a balance to that internal and external, you know, thing. But I think I care more about what I want to write and what I want to convey, as opposed to what people think I should. So in that sense, I think that kind of clicked for me really once I started putting albums out. You know, Unforeseen Shadows was the first album that I would put together. And when I sat down and knew that I was making an album, I thought about what I wanted to convey to people, you know, as opposed to just recording verses here, you know, just writing the freestyle in the cypher, just writing the freestyle at the open mic, you know, just to rap at the open mic, not necessarily putting songs together. I think once I had the opportunity to do that, I started to I took it a lot more seriously. Like it's almost like, you know, graduating high school, going to college. You know what I mean? Like, I think my first album was me graduating high school and going to college, you know, and I think, you know, getting my master's degree was, you know, once I was a couple years in the game, and then I really understood how to put an album together. And that was like Celestial Clockwork was like my master's degree,
Right.
you know, and I think Autopilot is my PhD. You know what I mean? Because it's the first record that I produced. It got super good feedback. People enjoyed the beats, people enjoyed the rhymes, and it was the first thing that I completely put together myself. So I think that was like me reaching the pinnacle really of what I set out to do initially. Once I started making records, get to that place where I'm, you know, completely encased artist, as opposed to, you know, having a lot of input in what I do and being able to completely be in control of my voice and the message that I put out there, whether it's the beats, the rhymes, the photographs, all of that stuff, some of the videos. Like I really started to become the person that I wanted to be and that I've always shot to be once I made that album. But it was a long journey to get there.
No, it's Unforeseen Shadows is an incredible listen now. And it's interesting because, and I have to credit, like, when I came back from the Army, I just gobbled up Scribble Jam DVDs. I was getting them in the mail all the time and just watching battle after battle. And the thing that really amazed me was, because most of the time, as you know, the battle rapper drops an album and they're shadow battling, right?
Right.
Album, they're battling the track. And the people that were there in what I would call that Scribble Jam clique knew that that wasn't enough, right? Firstborn, Shadows in the Sun, you know, Overcast, like everything was really deeper than that. And what was, how did you guys talk about that? Were these the late night conversations of like, my album isn't going to be like this?
No, it wasn't even really conversations. Blueprint just gave me beats and let me write what I wanted, and let me really be me on the record. You know what I'm saying? And credit to him. He definitely pushed me, definitely, allowed me to be part of the process. Like I was there a lot of times when he was making beats and, and got to have first dibs on certain things and, give suggestions here and there. So, he kind of allowed me to really have a part in creating the record and didn't really force me or push me in any direction. He allowed me to create what I wanted to create. So it was more of an internal, conversation of, this is what you've been practicing all these years for, is to put a record out. Every rapper that starts out in middle school freestyling at the lunch table eventually wants to put a record out, no matter, if they're dope at what they do, what kind of rap they do. That is every artist's dream that starts rapping, that starts singing, that starts doing anything that has to do with their voice and musically and, playing instruments and things of that nature. They want to put a record out. You know what I'm saying? And once I reached that point where I had that opportunity, I wasn't going to let it pass. I wanted to make sure if this is my only record that I ever put out, I wanted to have some sort of impact. I wanted to mean something. I wanted to mean something to me as well as to the people that hear it. And I think we achieved that with Unforeseen.
Yeah, it's a momentous digression on self in this really cool way. And that's one of the things I was going to ask you about making albums is, do you feel like if you're a lyricist first, right, and that is what you hang your hat on, then is it harder to maintain the bar and the standard for your discography than the artist who is kind of building a vibe and surfing the vibe? Or is it harder on the other end?
No, it's definitely harder, because if you're just building a vibe, there's not necessarily a focus. Like I've done records where, to me, they were just kind of vibe building records. And it's cool. It's fun. It's fun to do those records, and those records are easier. But, when you're making a record that has a focus to it, like a Celestial Clockwork, even like the Transition, like, Capture the Sun, all of those records, then it does take a little more time, take a little more focus, and take a lot more energy to maintain the kind of stay in that place, allow yourself to branch off here and there. But you're kind of, when you're in album mode, you have to, especially wanting the album to be cohesive or making, a concept record, you have to kind of stay in that place and stay in that mindset and make sure that, some of the things that, all of the things that you talk about kind of all relate to a surrounding theme. And that's one of the things I think I pride myself on, is being able to create soundscapes, for 30 minutes to an hour, whatever, however long the record is, that is cohesive, that blends together, that makes you, that takes you on a ride, take you on a journey. And I think when you think of it that in depth, the way that you approach it is with care. You know what I mean? And not saying that creating vibe music is easy, because it's not. Like there's people that have made their living off of, just rapping about whatever, you know what I'm saying, but just being super dope at it. And it's nothing wrong with that. I just chose a different path. And for me, it takes a lot to put a record together, in the creation of it and the construction of it.
Okay, maybe the difference is on the back end. Think about this, right? So let's say Playboi Carti puts out an album, people are not into, the vibe is wrong. Okay. Chance puts out Good Day. And that's a lyrical album. He's rapping on that. That has a concept. It just wasn't handled in a way that worked, right?
Mhm.
So if it's lyrical, but not organized or not flushed out or not done right,
Right.
feels like a bigger mess you've made.
Yeah.
And then you're also kind of I think with Chance, he was battling expectations as well. So
Yeah.
if you come in with like a clean slate where you don't have any expectations, you're able to, like, if Good Day was Chance's first project, I think it would have been viewed in a totally different light.
I agree.
That makes sense.
I agree. Because I mean, just Acid Rap, and that was what, his third project or second? I think Acid Rap was his second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Acid Rap there were joints on there. Joints, you know, and I think he started so high, you know, that
the bar,
you know, the bar he set, just like you were asking, the bar he set was so high. And when you get that kind of notoriety, there is a lot more pressure and there is a lot more expectation. But at the same time, people like you because you're you. So the expectation is that you continue to be you. I think the problem is as artists, once you get to a certain level, that people concentrate too much on the expectations and not what created the expectations in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, if you stick with the foundation of what created your expectations, then, you know, you don't feel pressure because you're just doing what you do. And it's hard, you know, easier said than done when you get, you know, start making millions of dollars and that's your livelihood. But that concept should still be there.
Right. And I feel like with Chance, like they had expectations when you said you have to be you. They had expectations of what Chance was.
Yeah, I can see that.
So now you're kind of battling that the projections that people are putting on you as well. I just think that's what happened with Good Day. Like they had, you know, people were projecting on Chance, and when his album didn't line up with those projections, people rebelled against it.
I can see that.
And the interesting thing you just brought up, Logic, is that yes, the consequences are worse when you make a mess, but on the positive side, someone being super lyrical, like for a full album, if you do it the right way, you create a bond with the audience that no other genre can really replicate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I never knew Guns N' Roses that well.
Right.
But I know, you know, I know what Scarface has been through. I know what, you know, what you name whoever, you know, I know all that stuff. So it's when you listen to a full album where someone's, you know, giving you themselves, you're in conversation with a person.
Yeah.
You feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. And could you give a little bit of a background of the genesis of Unforeseen Shadows? Like, how did that project come to be in terms of from your end?
Well, just a little bit of backstory about how me and Blueprint came to start working together. I was 15 years old and we had a hip hop expo in Columbus, Ohio. This was 95. And they had a freestyle battle contest where I think you won a trophy. And I want to say either it was 100 or like $300 or something. And I was 15 years old. You know, I used to, you know, go up to some of the open mics. There was a record store, backtrack a little further. There was a record store that we had here called the Groove Shack. And it was around, but I was like, you know, 13, 14 years old, 15 years old. And it was down on our college campus, Ohio State University's campus in that area. And it wasn't a great area back then. But I used to, the show, they would record the open mic at this record store and it would be on our cable access channel. So the way I got my mom to take me down there was telling her that I would be on TV if she would take me. So I would go there and freestyle, you know, and kind of met a lot of people, you know, and got a little name then. And fast forward to 95, I was in the freestyle contest and I was 15 years old and I won, you know, and it was off the head freestyle, you know, and 15 years old, beating grown men, you know what I'm saying? and I won, and Blueprint was there, and saw that. And so then my name was kind of in his head. Fast forward a little later, I went to high school where Manifest, who was actually part of Greenhouse, part of the waitlist group, he also went there, and we had this thing called Alumni Days, where people who had graduated came back to the high school. And during those days, because I used to organize battles at lunchtime in my high school, and Alumni Day was always a crazy popping day where, mad people in the school. It was always crowded. So I scheduled a battle for that lunch period, and he happened to be there, and I ended up winning the battle. And we talked afterwards about coming to his college, because he was in college, where they were throwing a show, and invited me to come up. It was about a half hour, 45 minutes from, Columbus. And Blueprint was the host of the show. And so I performed, me and my group performed, and, me and Blueprint ended up exchanging numbers. And fast forward about 2 or 3 years later, I go to the University of Cincinnati for college, and Blueprint lives in Cincinnati. And so, we stayed in touch. I let him know that I was coming to school there. And, we stayed in touch. He would come pick me up from my dorm, and we just chill out. He'd make beats. I'd record. Also, Dose One and Y, I don't know if you guys are familiar. They lived literally about 5 minutes from my dorm. So I was at their house all the time recording. That's when I did a lot of the Cloud Dead stuff and that. So I really got a lot more serious and was writing a lot more. And Blueprint just started giving me beat tapes. And it wasn't really discussed that I was going to make an album. Because, it just wasn't discussed. They were, Greenhouse Effect was working on an EP that they did, and Blueprint did all the beats for that. And, I was just over there during those sessions, and me and Blueprint, I would pick out beats, I would write rhymes, I'd tell him I had something, we record, and once we got to like 2 or 3 songs, 2, 3, 4 songs, then we're like, okay, let's turn this into something, we got something here. And that's kind of how it happened, and, we had the idea for Waitlist, which was established in 1999. And the album was released on tape along with the Greenhouse Effect EP in 1999.
No, that's why it took me longer to get to understand you, because like I was always focused on Blueprint, right? In the sense that Blueprint has the biggest difference from on stage to off stage of most rappers that I've seen. Like when I'm just watching the DVDs, I thought he was the angriest person ever, right? Because he battled like big and in people's face, and he battled as if he was a giant. And I saw him live, and he was one of the nicest people I ever went into. Like, and he was very, very cool, very humble, Midwest. And I was like, wow, this is like, and he's just so direct.
Yeah.
He's so direct in what he's conveying. Like, I dare anyone to listen to Blueprint and misinterpret something. I don't see
right.
I don't understand how you would do it. So I that sledgehammer, I just started relying on it. I was like, you can just pick up any Blueprint and believe in it, because it's who he is. And you as an MC, I was telling Castro when he put me on, I think of you as like an impressionist painter. Lots of brush strokes, like making a normal scene larger than it is with art. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, Phil. I had fun with words, man. I was very I loved the English language even as a youngster. I just loved words and learning new words and figuring out ways to use them. And I used to write poems and short stories as a kid. And once I heard hip hop, and it clicked in my head, like, oh, you can do that with words. Okay. This is something different. Let me try this, and I wrote my first rap when I was 9 years old, and that was 1989. And, just kept practicing and practicing and practicing. I would even imitate other artists' styles, just learning their lyrics, understanding cadences and things like that. And I didn't even know what that stuff was when I was young. I was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to learn their stuff and then I'll write my stuff in the same pattern that they write their stuff, just to practice. And, as I got older and I started to understand life more and have experiences more, and I was lucky enough to have the words to express those things when I was young. And I wasn't, and it's weird because in person, one-on-one, I'm such an introvert. I'm not the life of the party kind of dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the chill out in the corner, sip my beer and watch the crowd with my foot up on the wall kind of guy. But when it comes to expressing myself with my writing, I'm an open book, so like in person, it's such a contrast to how I am in person. My wife used to tell me that, when she really wanted to know what was on my mind, she would read my journals as opposed to ask me questions. I mean, and it was real because I was more free, with the English language and artistically than I was in conversation, back then. And granted, I've gotten way better at that, growing into my own, but that was really my refuge. And, it was the place where I worked out a lot of my issues on the paper, as opposed to having conversations or talking to people. That it was my therapy a lot of those years growing up, and, in some ways still is. So, it's definitely a different path, and I think comparing it to impressionist painting makes great sense.
That's awesome. No, it's and the cool thing about starting there, like Kay, if you look at the track listing for Celestial Clockwork, right? Look, the names of the songs, right? 1,000 Whispers, Celestial Clockwork, Hollow Shell, Cash Clutch. And compare them against, the transition, right? Hot Lead, Passion Fruit, like it's much more direct. It's much more pared down. In my head, this is like this is your Impossible Kid.
Okay. That's the first time I heard that not comparison, but I understand what you're saying.
I needed Impossible Kid to get through the jungle of language that Aesop creates. To get to who he is, right? And get to how funny he is and how much he's been through and how much he misses Camus and all this, right? And this is it's your version of it, I think. And the first thing I thought when I heard it, Kay, was, God, I wish I could be a young person listening to this fucking album. Like, this is the album me and Illogic didn't have when we were growing up, right? Because rap was considered a young man's sport, right? And old rappers didn't really exist.
Right.
And so you didn't get a chance to hear the wisdom of someone, becoming a grandfather and taking more of a, vested interest in the development of the family. Like, you didn't get to hear that. And I know some young people that love this album, and I admire them to be able to have time to take this and be like, yeah, I'm going to do it this way. Illogic had a good point there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's definitely it was a labor of love with this record. A lot of people don't know, but a lot of these songs have been in the process of being written, some for 10, 12 years. So, and some of them were actually written and completed, were just the message. I hadn't grown into the message that I was conveying yet. To a place where putting the record out, where I could stand on the things that I was saying, because I hadn't developed as far as my writing was. I was kind of speaking about the place that I wanted to be more than the place that I was when I wrote some of the songs. Hot Lead being one of those. She Didn't Write being one of those. So like this album is a mixture of the me looking forward to growing up and the me that is grown, and how those two things kind of related to each other. Because, you know, when you really listen to the record, you would never guess that some of the songs, and it's only 8 songs, but you would never guess that some of those songs are, you know, 15 years apart as far as the writing, you know, because the concepts and the ideas were there 15 years ago, but I wasn't ready to share those ideas yet, because like I said, I do take my art very seriously, and I want to be able to stand behind the things that I put out into the world. And some of the concepts and some of the songs that I wrote back then, that I did use for this record or finish for this record, I wasn't ready to put those things out there because I didn't want to live up to some of the things that I was touting about myself as a person, you know, not even just as a rapper, as a person. So this album is a very important piece of my puzzle, I think. And, you know, it kind of sets a tone for where I'm going in the future, I believe.
Well, it's interesting. When you said you weren't ready, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that, you know, for a lot of artists, whenever we make something dope, we're so ready to share it all the time. And sometimes, you know, because I recorded those songs to other beats before, you know, some of them, you know, some of the beginning versions of the songs recorded to other beats, you know, had the idea of putting them on other records, but it just, certain things just didn't fit. And I don't think that I was being as forward thinking consciously, you know, but I think once I got to this record, I started to understand the things that I wrote 10 years ago a little better, and started to really understand the tone and what I was saying about myself, and even to myself, and to, you know, the people that will be listening. And I just wasn't ready at the time. And it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision all the time not to put the songs out because of that reason. But I've grown to understand that that was the reason that those songs hadn't come out, or they weren't completed, you know, when they were first written and stuff. So, you know, this journey I've been on, I always tell myself that, you know, whenever I write something and I don't completely understand what I'm writing, I believe that I am given this gift, that it's not by my own power that I do the things that I do. And like I said, I write for me first. So everything that I write, I look back on sometimes, and there's things that I catch even in my own stuff about my own emotional state at the time that I wrote it, that I might not have understood when I wrote it. So that's the fun thing about, you know, listening to my music for me. But yeah, so that's what I mean really about not being ready at the time, you know, when those things were initially started or written.
Okay, listening to the transition, what struck you about it?
So the order I listened to Forgotten Shadow, and then Celestial Clockwork, and then the transition. And
beautiful.
I thought that like the first two albums, Celestial Clockwork and Unforeseen Shadows, I don't want to say the production was maximalist, but it was almost like overwhelmingly beautiful.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, like, it's like you're seeing a sunset, and it's like so many details to take in. So when I heard the transition, like it was in that same vein, but it was a little bit more pared down, and it was a little bit more like I felt like the focus was more on the lyrics to me. And the music was more of an accompaniment, like it was more there, but the emphasis and the focus was primarily the lyrics.
Yeah.
What makes Blueprint one of like, there's a lot of people who swear by Blueprint, not just as a lyricist, but as a producer, right? One of the things I think everyone loves about Blueprint is Blueprint can take the same sample everyone's taken,
yeah,
and make a better song. He just has a knack for that, of like a sample that some people would go, everyone's used that. He's like, no, I got something.
right.
And the thing cool about Prince's production style, at least with me when making records, is that, you know, when I initially get the beats, they're just a loop. You know, I don't hear the finished product until he gets in there, and, you know, it might be a completely different beat, you know, next time I listen to it. You know, he builds around the lyrics and makes sure that what he's building is a great, you know, foundation, you know, foundational structure for what I'm saying. And that is super commendable. And it definitely has influenced me in how I, you know, produce my records, because I do the same thing. You know, I kind of, you know, semi-produce, and then once the music is there, then I go in and make changes and things of that nature. So he's really been an influence in that area for me.
And I feel like with Transition, like when you hear, it sounds like Unforgotten Shadow, it sounds like a 21-year-old being introduced to this Blueprint production.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so Transition, like, what is this, 23 years later?
Right.
You know, that's I can't do math right now. Was that 40, 44, 40, 44, 45? 40, that sounds like a 44-year-old who's been rapping professionally, I guess you could say, for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they have a command of their craft.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can definitely hear the growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to a point with the Transition where I just wanted to kind of display the fact that, you know, I do this, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I do this at a high level. And I think also with my production, especially after releasing Autopilot, the step that my production took as well, you know, from the Autopilot album to the Transition, I wanted that to be highlighted as well, but I wanted to make sure that the lyrics and the music were at the same level artistically. And the reason that I, you know, did the production style the way that I did is because I just wanted hard beats. I wanted to make kind of a got lyrics style record, you know, now in my life, you know, as far as how it felt, and it being more up tempo, more boom bap, you know, drum breaks and sample chops, you know what I'm saying? Like that was, and scratches, you know, like some old school 1988, you know, that was kind of what I was going for as far as the style. That's where I was, and how I wanted people to receive it, you know?
No, it's, I remember texting Wazilla months ago about the Transition, and Zilla was like, Illogic sounds so fucking cool on this album. Like, and that's one of the things that you sound very cool and very composed. And I think there were albums in the past where you were frenetic and like intellectually frantic, that you digesting and diagnosing yourself in a way that is not easy to do, but is like, yeah, this is a different, more composed, more efficient vibe. Production wise, it's very rich, jazzy, boom bap, hard drums. It feels rich. It feels very like Large Professor in my mind for some reason, like that kind of head nodding, but like warmth. And there's what I noticed about it listening to it today, Kay, was every song has kind of a recognizable voice snuck behind the track.
Yeah.
You know, somebody that needs me, like it
Stevie Wonder. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you did that. I thought that whole part of the chorus was just brilliant.
Well, I can't take credit for that because I have my fellow producer, videographer friend and DJ. His name is Product. He did the cuts on that, and you know, I sent him the song without any direction. You know, I sent him the song, said I want to hook. You know, just listen to it, whatever you come up with. You know, if I think it fits, let's roll with it. You know, and I sent it to him. I want to say a week or two later. You know, he sent me a rough, you know, cut of that. And I think it had a few extra things actually in it that he sent when he sent it originally. And I did peel it back a little more, you know. But yeah, man, like he's the man, you know what I'm saying? Like he's a really dope producer. He's a videographer. He's a chef. He's an author. He wrote a children's book not too long ago. Like he's a Renaissance man, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to Product. But yeah, that hook is one of my favorites. And actually me and Blueprint just did a video for that song that'll be coming out pretty soon. So yeah, I'm excited for that too.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those that we were like the drums are hitting hard, and then you know the scratches come in, and then you hear these kind of recognizable voices behind the tracks, and it really creates an environment. It's a great lesson. If you know great people, use your people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I couldn't do this without a lot of people that have helped me out, you know, with certain things, just to make things as great as they are, you know, and sound really good, you know.
Yep. The other thing we're going to talk about was what is there any song in particular that you've heard people connect to, you know, the deepest on the transition, and why do you think that song has been so well received?
There's actually been a few. I knew a small piece, the last song that's on the record. I knew that would be a song that resonated, you know, with especially people in my age group. I'm actually 43. Just turned 43 last week. But you know, would resonate with people in my age group who have children, you know, and who are getting to that point in their lives where they're, you know, in between being the elders of their family and, you know, raising these kids and, you know, being grandfathers and getting closer to that age where we start to, you know, lose our parents, and our parents are getting older, and, you know, we start to have our own thing ahead of us, you know what I'm saying? And have lived life, you know? So I think that song definitely would resonate, and it does. A lot of people really like that song. A surprising song that people really like is Play to Win, which is a little story that's on there, and cuts on there are done by my man Bombirdo here in Columbus. Really dope DJ as well. But a lot of people seem to like that song too. So I'm preparing to do a video for that one too. And She Didn't Write. A lot of people like She Didn't Write, and I think I think honestly, I think that song hits partially because of the vibe of the song. The beat is really kind of cool, smooth, laid back, jazzy.
Yep.
And the story is, you know, kind of cool and kind of fun as well. So those are the main three. But, you know, people seeing, since it's such a short record, you know, a lot of people, you know, every day they'll like a different song, you know what I mean? So and I'm really glad I was able to create something that had, you know, enough flavor on it that people could gravitate to any piece or the whole thing, you know.
Yep. Yeah, no, She Didn't Write. It was a real standout for me.
Absolutely, me too.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I think, you know, it showcases you have a poet's knack for phrasing and word organization. That is like, me and Kay have talked about this with Ka, right? People who just naturally organize words and phrases in ways that you've never heard before. And that's really something that's magical and kind of, I think, is, you know, what poetry is, what's special a lot about poetry is finding new stuff like that. Do you have any advice for up and coming poets, MCs, people who want to deal with words, on playing with phrasing, on organizing, you know, thoughts and hooks in that way? What would you suggest?
don't take everything so literal. There's always ways to bend ideas, especially with phrasing, with enunciation, um, to create a mood with even just the sound of words, and not necessarily always the words themselves. But in that sense, with the words themselves, make sure that you understand what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that you know words, because one of the powerful things about someone like Malcolm X is that he read the whole dictionary, copied it out by hand, and knew almost pretty much every word in the English language and understood what they meant. So that made him a more powerful orator, and because he understood the English language and understood phrasing and understood the power of words, and didn't always take the words so literal that you couldn't put certain words that people may not use next to each other together, but when you put them together, they actually do make sense if you phrase it correctly. Just practice, what I'm saying. Like you were talking about earlier, do some reading. Make sure that you are learning other people's phrasing and how they phrase things, and that will maybe spark your ideas on how you can personally phrase your writing, and and also how it can be delivered. Listen to other poets, listen to other MCs, and listen to them and study them, but also don't be afraid to express yourself and become who you're supposed to be, and let people hear your voice in that instance, once you're ready to put your own pen to paper.
So do you have any personal favorite bars on the transition? Like you wrote it or you heard yourself like rap it and you're like, damn, like I did a really good job with that one.
Yeah, there's a few. Let's see. I mean, honestly, probably the first 8 bars of Hot Lead, and I think how it's delivered as well. One of the things that Zilla was talking about when I was on Call Out Culture was just, how confident and chill I sound on that song, and how it's delivered, because it's delivered like somebody who is just kind of showing you that, I'm the shit, basically. But also giving you, lessons within that, telling you that, yeah, I'm the man now, but it took me some time to get here. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I first started, I wanted to no, that's not it. I notice avoiding hip hop, my job's to fill the emptiness while you work on getting famous. I'm inches from infamous because I write like a kamikaze lives life. Detonate cockpits when I spit, tongue lash, and I'm crashing. Mike C. Like that just kind of sets up, this is about to be a fun record. You know what I'm saying? Like even the way the beat drops, all of that. I think a lot of the songs, on this record, the music, the lyrics are great. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's one of my best written records. But I think the accompaniment of the beats that I made and chose for each song take them up, another level than just the lyrics. And the delivery and everything really conveys the attitude of each song. Let's see.
Ooh, very good.
Yeah, like that's Hot Lead is definitely one of those. I keep that's why I love living life in circles, because I keep seeing things that I missed the first time around.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, man. Like Hot Lead got some phrases and some lines in there. That is definitely one of my favorite verses that probably I've written. And just because of what it means to me, but as well as just how clever a lot of it is. It's definitely one of those joints for me. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the transition. I could probably, sit here for y'all for hours talking about the lyrics.
But the Hot Lead thing made me think it's almost like Ether third verse like energy. Like the cool thing about the third verse was he flipped it. He was like, "I'm not mad, I'm disappointed." Right? Like I raised you, and now you're being mean to me. Like I and you're you're now a clown and this is making me sad. And like, so that was the whole tone of Hot Lead was like, I'm not mad at you, I'm disappointed. You're so far from great. And I know because I'm right here. I'm great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
And when did you said that Hot Lead was a little bit like you wrote that 10 years ago or
yeah, that was written, I want to say that might be a lot older. That might be like 2000, like 2009, 2010 when I actually wrote that. So it's like 10, 12 years old, you know what I mean? And I did, you know, clean up some of the lyrics. There's some things I changed. But for the most part, about 90% of it was already written.
So I guess that kind of ties into my next question. So how would you say your relationship to the song Hot Lead, since it's over a decade years old, how do you feel like your relationship as an artist had changed to the song that you were able to finally be ready to release it in 2022?
I think that the things that I was saying were resonating with me more. I think the things that because, you know, like that line I said, you know, I love living life in circles because I keep, you know, finding things I missed the first time around. You know, writing that song 13 years ago and being, you know what I'm saying, and 13 years later, really understanding that line because I had been living that line for the last, you know, really starting to understand a lot more depth in the things that I was saying. And, you know, I understood that they were dope when I wrote them, but the depth of the things that I was saying really resonated with me a lot more. And I think that's what made me, and I mean, to start out the album, because I think that was a brave thing for me to start the album out with a song that's almost 13 years old, you know what I'm saying? And, but I think it really set the album up well with the concepts and things that I was talking about in the record and the production of it, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah. So in the breakdown of one of those questions where, since you've been so, you know, ensconced in this scene and you've had, you know, Capture the Sun with Blockhead, you know, you were on Labor Days, you know, the great song with Slug on Celestial Clockwork, you had these relationships with these massive, important people. And what lessons have you learned from them? What lessons did you learn doing all that work with Blockhead? I guess would be the place to start.
Honestly, with Blockhead, it was don't take yourself so seriously. And which is ironic because the album Capture the Sun is a pretty serious record. But it was fun creating, you know, that record because it was honestly the first time that me and Blockhead, you know, really created a relationship and regularly communicated. We had known each other for a long time before we even did that record. I think Capture the Sun was 2013, I want to say. And, you know, I had met Blockhead at least maybe 5-6 years before that, I want to say. Maybe not that much, but, you know, we had known each other for a while, been traveling kind of in the same circles, and done a couple songs before together. And, you know, but Blockhead is such a cool, calm individual, never takes themselves too seriously, you know, likes to laugh, likes to joke. And, you know, just going through that process with him he made it super easy. Again, really allowed me to spread my wings and create things that I wanted. You know, I actually mixed, you know, my vocals on the record. I added a lot of the interludes and stuff, you know, like were my additions because I actually put the record together, and he gave me the freedom to do that and really learn how to put a vision together. And, you know, he allowed me to do it. So, you know, really learn how to not take myself too seriously, but, you know, in that time, him allowing me to really shape that record into what I wanted to was a good lesson for me once I started producing for myself and putting the full arrangements together. Yeah. Let's see. Well, Slug, you know, what I've learned from Slug, a lot of watching Slug. I learned about you know, this craft could be fun, but make sure you understand your business and make sure you understand your worth, and make sure that, you know, nobody dictates how you do what you do, when and where, and always be true to who you are. You know, no matter what people say about your music, no matter what people say about you, always stay true to who you are, and eventually the fans will come with you, you know. Aesop, Aesop is just fearless, man. I think he's probably the guy that I was, you know, between him and Idea, they were the two that I was closest with, especially back in the day. We're not nearly as close as we were back in the day. We don't nearly talk as much. We stay in contact. But, you know, for him, you know, with him, I just learned, you know, seeing Aesop produce really made me believe that I could do it. You know, Idea and Aesop were actually the first two, outside of Blueprint, of course, were the first two that was in that circle that, you know, started out basically with records from other people. Of course, Aesop produced some stuff that was on Float, a couple other tracks on there. But from where his production started to where it is now, you know, is definitely night and day. So seeing him and Idea do that and take that step, because, you know, a lot of people, they should know, Idea produced How I Won the Right to Think. And that was the first album that he had produced on his own. And it was a great record and a real successful record. So they really showed me that, oh, you know, I can actually do that one day, because it's always been a dream of mine. But, you know, they kind of gave me the confidence that I could do that. And, you know, last but not least, Blueprint has been like a big brother to me since I was, you know, 17, 18 years old. We've been through a lot. You know, we've navigated the hip hop industry, you know, at least the portion that we were in, together, you know, in most of the time. You know, he was the first one to really take me out of the state to perform, and really had faith in my artistic ability, and that the things that I had to say people needed to hear. And he's just always been a driving force in wanting me to do better and wanting me to succeed, and having, you know, we push each other pretty heavily. I mean, we do the podcast every week, but outside of the podcast, after we do the podcast or before, we're talking for at least an hour, you know, strategizing, talking about our day, you know, talking about where we fucked up, talking about, you know, plans for the future, talking about running things past each other, ideas for albums, songs, you know, all of that stuff. So we're each other's sounding board really a lot, you know, with our art, but we're also really, really, really good friends, you know, outside of the music. So, you know, he's taught me a lot, you know what I'm saying? A little bit of everything, honestly. And I'm pretty sure me and him will be friends until, you know, we're seen old and senile.
Beautiful, man.
Yep. Lifestyles, like the Martin Lawrence life.
Martin and Eddie, yeah.
Yep.
How so you've been rapping since '95, and I wanted to ask you this: how have you seen the hip hop has evolved over the last 20-25 years?
It's evolved into people that created hip hop and started this music, you know, back in the late 70s or early 70s. I'm sure they didn't see all of this. I'm sure they didn't see all the branches, you know, that would come from what they've created. And granted, I don't listen to all of the branches. I don't like all of the branches, but the fact that they exist is something that we can be proud of, because it shows that not only is hip hop something viable, you know, that you can, you know, create a lifestyle and live from, but it's something that can also allow you to have a voice, you know, in the influence and lives of others. And that's not always a good thing, You know what I mean? Depending on what, what the music is talking about and who's listening to it. But just the fact that there's so much variety and there's so much, there's so much new stuff. I'm always discovering new artists that are dope. I'm always discovering new artists that are whack, but the fact that there is so much out there and you can kind of tailor your own palette, you can curate your own palette of what you want to listen to. I think is a beautiful thing. And I think the idea that, hip hop is whack and has become this thing that is not good is a fallacy. The biggest issue now is that you just have to do a little more work, to find the good stuff. You can't turn on the radio and hear Bonita Applebum no more. Like those days are gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those days are gone. You're not going to hear, De La Soul on the radio like you used to back in the, 90s. You know what I'm saying? And that's okay because we have Spotify, we have Bandcamp, we have all of these other ways to listen to music. So it just takes a little more work now to, find the things that, please your palate. But the fact that it's there, I think is wonderful because there wasn't a lot to choose from when I was young. Like there was a lot, but there wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Compared to now, there was, you knew most of who was rapping, who was really putting out music back then. And the good stuff usually did get on the TV, did get on the video shows. A lot of us wouldn't have heard 93 Till Infinity if it wasn't on Rap City. You know what I mean? But these days they wouldn't play a song like that probably on, you know what I'm saying? So it's weird, but I think the fact that all of that exists is great.
Yeah, no, I mean, the internet wasn't real, right?
And
so, and even when it started, it wasn't real and developed in that sense. So I remember when I was in Texas with my buddy Jose in Texas, and I was in the Army, and he showed me this whole like Latin Texas end of rap, and I was like, "This is amazing." And when I went back to Maine, I was calling the record labels like, "Can you send me music?" And I'd get somebody who was like mid blunt, and they'd be like, "Man, my sister's in New Hampshire. I think I could get you some," like it was just different. You had to chase it down, to know anything. And so, and it's not now chasing it down is just Googling,
It's as quick as a keystroke, man. It's a keystroke away from new music. I mean, back in the day, like when I first, met Dose One and Slug and all them, we used to send cassette tapes through the mail.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was our Spotify. Like we would, when we made new shit, like we would send each other cassette tapes. I still have a lot of the cassette tapes that I got back then. Like original, versions of certain songs that made, certain Atmosphere albums and old versions of, all kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, we've come a long way. You know what I mean?
Long way. And
I can send you an MP3 as opposed to you got to wait a week to get a tape,
Yeah, no, me and Derek, who started this thing, when we first got streaming, I called him. We were like, now we have to listen to everything.
Right.
No fucking excuse.
Or you don't have to listen to everything.
I mean,
you can listen to whatever the fuck
we
you
went
want.
we were the opposite way.
Great.
Like, now we must listen to everything, and we didn't even listen to stuff we liked. Skip that. I know it's good, right?
Yeah.
Only the stuff I either don't like or don't know. So, but yeah, it's wild. Related question here: just becoming a national name in hip hop from Columbus, Ohio, couldn't have been easy in the times we described in the 90s and early aughts. What was your plan for growth at that time, and how did it change and how did it alter as the scene grew and you grew with it?
Honestly, it wasn't my plan. It was Blueprint's plan. I mean, if you listen to the song Passion Fruit, I kind of map it out there. When I first started, I wanted to rap simple and plain, only cared about hitting the stage and fans knowing the name. Like I was just along for the ride. I just wanted to rap. I wanted people to know who I was, and I wanted to make some money, and I didn't care necessarily about the business aspect of it. So, whatever way would get me in front of people, that's what I did. And, thank God I was connected to a person in a group that had a bigger plan than just going to open mics, you know, putting out records and doing shows and traveling. You know, we started out touring just in our state, and we would call them the waitlist invasion tours, where we would hit, you know, 10, 15 different cities within our own state, you know, in like a 2-week period. Wow. And we used to do those, you know, a couple times a year, and that's how our name started to grow. And you know, Blueprint actually got cool with Cryptic One through message boards back then.
Oh yeah.
Who was part of Adam's family. I was, you know, getting a little more, you know, I became friends with Dose and Yoni. So, you know, I was the first to meet Slug and the Rhyme Sayers people. So I was in that world. And, you know, we just kind of, you know, combined, and everybody introduced everybody to everybody. And, you know, the orphanage came about out of all of that, you know. So it's been a great fucking ride, man. Yeah, it's been a great ride.
I mean, I think that's that my suggestion for a Super Duty Tough Work episode, like the art of being Robin, you know, like the ego is a heck of a thing, but when you get in a room with someone who you know is really smart and you could really learn from, being able to flip the switch and be like, I'm going to be the best supporter in the world and sponge this shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's usually, there's a saying that I've heard a lot of times that, you know, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, you know. And being in the room with Print, a lot of times I knew I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I knew I wasn't the person with the plan, but I trusted the fact that the person that I would attach myself to wasn't going to do anything to let me down, and wasn't going to do anything to make me fail, because, you know, my success was his success and vice versa. So, you know, being able to kind of really coast on talent alone for a long time, you know, I really credit that to him, because, you know, he had me, you know what I'm saying? He made sure that when I went on tour, I made money. You know, he made sure that I was getting paid my royalties for my albums that came out, because he knew I had a family I was supporting with just music then. You know, he made sure, and he could have not done that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many stories of people that get dicked and get jerked by the people that they work with. You know, and the fact that me and this man have had a relationship for over 20 years and we still got each other's back to this day, you know, means a lot. You know what I'm saying? My kids, you know him. You know what I'm saying? Like, they know him by name. My mother knows him. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know each other's mothers, you know, like that's how deep it goes, you know. So yeah, when I first started, I didn't have no kind of plan, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, I'm just gracious to still be able to do this, you know.
But what an incredible skill to be able to sponge and contribute and become Batman when you need to. That's incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. So the other thing, the transition, you've talked about it before, it marks a change in that way you're going to do business.
A change in how I'm going to do art, you know what I'm saying, going forward. Just kind of looking for something else, you know, like not, you know, within the art scope, but just looking for some things, you know.
So the question is, what are you going to enjoy the most about your new work status?
No pressure. The fact that there is no pressure. I am not done making albums. I am not done making music, but I'm not in a rush to make music anymore. I have a great paying job that I enjoy, actually. My wife has a great paying job. My kids are getting older and, you know, starting their lives, moving out of the house. You know, it's time to enjoy life. I was talking to Blueprint the other day, and actually talking to my friend Il Poetic as well. You know, this is the first time in my life since I started doing music that I don't have a plan. I've had a plan since I was 18 years old when it came to my art. And it's the first time that I've put a project out and I don't have another one waiting in the wings. And in some instances, that's super scary. But in other instances, it's super freeing, and it's allowing me to explore new types of music. It's allowing me to, you know, pick up some other instruments and, you know, try to, you know, broaden my palette. Um, it's done a lot for me just in this short period of time once I made the decision that, you know, I wasn't really going to push for what was next after the transition. You know, ironically, it was going to be a transition. And whatever that transition became, I was going to let that happen organically, but still pushing myself. You know, I still am a person that I have a artistic schedule. So, you know, 7 p.m., usually Monday through Thursday, I'm in my studio. I'm either watching tutorials, making beats, listening to records, you know, messing with my camera, doing something artistic, but I'm not doing it with an idea of, you know, this album is coming out next year, you know what I'm saying? Or I'm working on this thing that I have to dedicate my time to. I'm just in learning mode again. And I love the fact that I can be there, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, not having the pressure is the biggest thing. You know, at this point, like, you know, for the next couple years, I might just put just random Lucy songs up on Spotify, you know, that I make one day. And if I think it's dope, I might mix it down and throw it on DistroKid the next morning and keep it moving. You know, like having those kind of options now is scary, but also, you know, kind of exciting. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really looking forward to finding whatever, you know, is going to be next for me musically and artistically.
Love it.
So
Love it.
look, do you ever listen to your old thing? Like, do you ever go back to Unforeseen Shadows and listen to that? Or do you ever go back to your old work and listen to that like in an objective way?
Oh yeah. Every year I try to do this every year. And it's gotten increasingly difficult as my discography has expanded.
Right.
But I try every year to take a few weeks and listen to all of the music that I've ever put out. As far as my full-length records, you know, my full-length records and EPs, I try to take a few weeks out to where all I listen to is me, and I listen to the records in order. I actually have a Spotify playlist with all of my albums in it in order. And I try to do that once a year and really listen to everything. And it really shows me the journey that I've been on as a man, as an artist. And it's really fun to do sometimes. And there's a lot of times that I hear songs that make me cringe because, oh, I mispronounced this word, or, you know, my voice sounded weird, or, you know, I'm a little off beat there, or dag, I was using too many words there. I couldn't take a good breath, you know. But, you know, in all, I enjoy my catalog, and it's fun to listen to these days. But yeah, man, I'm real critical of myself, and I hear a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But I still love it. I still love it.
And then so looking back and looking at, I guess it would be like your first phase before your transition. How has Illogic evolved as an artist and as a voice?
I think I'm more confident in the things that I know and say and believe. I have a lot more absolutes in my life, things I just won't do, things I won't say, you know, things I won't entertain. You know, I'm a big person that, you know, feels and understands energy, at least how it makes me feel, you know. So I try not to allow negative feelings and energy to linger too long, whether it's, you know, in a person that I'm around, whether it's within myself. You know, I try to make sure that I'm staying on, you know, at least on the optimistic side of things, not thinking that, you know, the sky is falling, you know, all the time, but understanding that if the sky does fall, I can pick it up and
I'll be all right.
Put things back together, and I'll be all right. You know, when I was young, which is why a lot of my early music does have a lot of depression in it, because I was trying to find who I was and dealing with life and learning how to deal with life and learning how to navigate the world, you know, that always wasn't so nice to me. It was hard to really understand why a lot of those things were happening. And now when I understand myself a lot more as a person, it's a lot easier to convey my feelings and emotions a little more concise and a little more efficiently and a little more direct and a little more focused, without losing the depth and without losing the substance that, you know, I had when I was being, you know, a little more abstract and a little more ethereal with the things that I was saying. Now I can, you know, speak in direct terms a lot of times and still resonate with the depth that I had when I was, you know, doing Celestial. You know what I'm saying? You know, now I've learned how to say more with less.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
You know?
no, that is clearly what, you know, what you take away going through the discography. Unforeseen Shadows, my first reaction to listen to it was, this is exactly how it feels to be in your 20s. This is it. This is the impressionist painting of being in your 20s. Yeah, it's vivid. Yeah. No, I mean, this has been one of my favorite conversations we've had.
Absolutely.
We've got some incredible people. And I knew it was going to be incredible. So, but Kay, do you have anything else, or we could go to transition?
No, man. I just want to, you know, I agree everything with what you said, man. This has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot just listening to you, man. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you guys again for having me, man. This has been cool, man. I love doing podcasts with, you know, new people and really having discussions as opposed to, you know, people just asking me questions and firing off things. So it's, you know, that's one thing that I really love about podcasts, is that you get to have conversations with people that, you know, like-minded people that are into, you know, a lot of the same things. So it's been really cool. And thank you guys for having me again.
No problem. No, the recommendation corner, I wanted people to know that, because the end of the year happens and the lists come out, right? And I think people start to put their lists together last minute. I started putting together my album of the year list yesterday for 2023.
I feel you. That's how all people should do it. The list shouldn't come out till like February.
I'm secretly hoarding the list. You know what I mean? I'm 8 deep on it, and one of the high ones on my list, it's so interesting, it's so different, is Art School Dropout by Jamie Cornelia.
Never heard of them, honestly.
Aamee Cornelia, Cornelia. It's on Bandcamp. It's 18 songs, and it's incredible. Like, you, over the years, what happens in rap is new visionary people get called weird, right? And dismissed, and then they take over, and then it's not weird anymore. And the new kids don't even understand what that argument was about, right?
Right.
You know, I remember people getting offended by Kid Cudi. You know, how dare this be music? And this is an album that is post all that discussion. The beginning part of it is like a very beautifully organized, produced, like, independent rap album about Jamie Cordelia's life. And it transitions near like the mid to the end, becoming kind of a trap drill indie rap album about Jamie Cordelia's life. It never loses the thread of the story, but it becomes kind of a trap album by the end. The hooks are big, the songs are fun, but she's still talking about real shit, real life shit. You really rap, but you can really do lots of stuff. And this is just a real musical talent. I think she produced all this stuff. I mean, I think she's just doing it, and it's a heck of a first listen for anybody who wants to check it out. It's recommend. Yep.
Nice.
Good deal. And did you hear the Boldy, Kay?
No, I did not.
Boldy and Rich Gaines had dropped an album. You got to find it. I can't remember the title right now, but like it's peak Boldy talking to the music while it goes.
Okay, I gotta check this out now.
Boldy is addicted to making rap music. I'm gonna be writing about this. Like you can hear him like talking to the hook, talking to the sample, talking to himself. Like if Boldy didn't have rap, he'd be in bad shape. Like this is his therapy, right? And it's really incredible to see it. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not going to slow down. He's going to keep rolling. So those are some. So the other thing I wanted to say, because of the depth of Illogic's catalog and how like unique the voice is, I needed to listen to something that was very different and mix it in. So my mix-in artist of the week was Portishead. It started with Third, which I didn't like when it came out, but I love now.
Yeah, I was the same way with that record.
Okay.
They're much smarter than me. That's
right.
Portishead are just much smarter than me and knew what they were doing. Because like you hear like a band like Violent Femmes will drop a new album and it nods to their original album. They give you more of kind of what you love. Portishead never do that.
Right.
Never do that. They're always in a completely new direction. It takes years to figure out what they're doing. But really all the albums are so different, so awesome, and really darkly poetic in a different genre that made sense to mix with your music. It wasn't hard to go, from the transition to Sour Times,
Right.
It's hard. So shout out to Portishead, because that's music stands the fuck up.
Yeah, it does. Definitely.
Yeah. So, Illogic, do you have any recommendations for the people for albums to listen to?
Let's see. Well, this is probably a cliche one, but Nas has been on fire. I can't stop listening to him. The newest one probably is my favorite. The King's Disease 3.
Yep.
Definitely an amazing record. JID, his new album. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
The Forever Story.
Yeah, The Forever Story. Amazing record. And dude can rap his ass off. Like, I can listen to him rap forever. Like, he's one of those dudes where he comes up with, like you were talking about phrasing earlier. Like, he comes up with rhyme patterns and ways to put words together to trap beats, regular, boom bap beats. Like the way that he does it is just amazing. That album I really loved a whole lot. Let's see some stuff that you may not have heard. There's some local guys, and God willing they won't be local for long, but there's a dude named Trek Manifest who just dropped a record. Actually, let me look it up really quick to tell you the name of it, because I can't think of it off the top of my head.
My Bandcamp is up. Everything's personal.
I believe so. I think that was his last record. Let me see.
That's May of 2022. Yeah.
Yep. So he just dropped the record like last week.
Okay.
Or 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
Is it on his Bandcamp? It might not be on his Bandcamp. Do I have my phone? I don't have my phone. I can't think of the name of his freaking
Trek. How do you spell Trek?
TREK.
Trek Manifest. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I appreciate your patience. That's what it's called.
Yeah, I think that is I think that is the new record. I think that is it.
Or is that 2020? I don't know. That's weird.
No, that might not be it. Hold on for a second.
He's got a lot of work.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys here in the city. Let me see what.
Yeah, I'm seeing stuff from. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm sorry for.
No, take your time. No.
Oh no! The one day I arrived. I guess there's that.
Yeah, the One Day I Arrived. That's the new album that came out.
Okay.
It is on Spotify. Trek Manifest. He has follow him on Instagram. He has a lyric video for like the first single for the song for his album. Super dope. Also Trigno, a cat that's, and these are young dudes, you know what I'm saying, like not super young, but like I think early 30s, you know, and or late 20s, and they're really good. Trigno, he is also a local guy here that is an amazing artist. He dropped the album last year. TRIG.
Is it Untitled?
Nope, not that one.
Keep finding the old ones.
Hold on, I'm gonna find it.
Trigno. Got Trigno. We got Right Just Do.
Yeah, Right Just Do, that record. And actually both of those records are produced by the same producer. His name is Supernatural. That's from here. Real dope producer that's been around actually as long as I've been making music. He's been here, you know, he's worked with actually a lot of big artists. Has a track with Kendrick Lamar, a couple other people. So he's a really dope artist. And my man John Rogers, you know, he's a cat from Buffalo, but he lives here in Columbus, Ohio, and put out an album last year that's really dope as well. And his album's called Fly Flacco. And if you like, you know, Rock Marcy, if you like, you know, cats that are in that vein, he's one of those dudes that, you know, and he produces all his own beats as well. And he's an amazing producer. So those are, you know, 3 suggestions I would give off the top of my head of some, you know, give you guys some new music to listen to. And, you know, if you see cats that are, you know, connected to any of those 3 dudes that I mentioned, you know, you probably find some good shit, you know, connected to.
Yeah, Fly Flacco is on Bandcamp. It's 1C. Looks good. I gotta check this out. That's awesome. So yeah, Kay, do you have any recommendations?
Not this week again.
I recommend everybody in the Call Out Culture Basketball League brace themselves because Anthony Davis is off the injury list. I'm coming.
Yeah, we hope he can stay off. I'm a Laker fan, so I've been waiting for him to come off the injury list, but I don't have faith that he'll be healthy throughout the playoffs. I don't.
Shout out to Thomas Bryant, who did some work during the intermediate. Yep.
Yeah.
No, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your time, the wisdom, and the heart that you put into the music, you put in the interview, and that's awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Whenever you come to Maine, let us know. Definitely.
Will do. We will definitely stay in touch.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
What will tomorrow